Imagine a community where people don't just live together, they grow together, earn together, and support each other economically. What if your local network could create jobs, fund businesses, and build real financial stability, all without waiting for outside help? Today in this explainer, we're diving into some incredibly powerful source material. We'll be exploring how systemic narratives and biases affect us globally, but more importantly, we're going to look at the actionable, practical ways communities can push back to build profound economic resilience.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with deconstructing the noise, then look at the cost of systemic bias. After that, we'll pivot to the solutions, the community economic network, the steps to local prosperity, and finally, reclaiming the narrative.
We're kicking things off with a pretty deep reflection from our sources. Is fear accidental, or is it carefully constructed? Living in today's information age, we are constantly bombarded with fragments, headlines, hashtags, half-truths. The materials ask us to step back and critically consider how complex human lives are routinely reduced to just singular stereotypes. A stark example of this is how the lives of 1.9 billion Muslims are frequently filtered through a really narrow media lens of conflict and fear. It literally reduces a massive, incredibly diverse global population down to a handful of breaking news alerts.
To really understand how this works, we have to look at the concept of collective guilt. The sources point out a pretty clear pattern. When a crime is committed by a minority, it's often framed in the media as a collective issue, using broad terms like Islamic terrorism, for example. But when the exact same crime is committed by someone else, it's suddenly treated as an isolated, individual act or maybe a mental health issue. So why the double standard? The sources emphasize that extremism has absolutely no single religion or culture. They illustrate this dangerous myth where one narrative forces an entire community to carry the weight of an individual's actions, while another narrative gets the privilege of individual accountability.
Section 1. Deconstructing the noise beyond the headlines.
Living under the constant weight of these biased assumptions creates what our sources call invisible struggles. And this isn't always about one massive, overt moment of discrimination. It's about 1,000 small, quiet moments. It's that slight pause before someone says their name in a job interview. It's the pressure to constantly prove you belong, to not be too visible, or even just the pure exhaustion of having to explain or apologize for the actions of a total stranger. Over time, these invisible struggles build up. They create isolation. They create silence. And when these narratives go unchecked, they seep right into our justice systems. Instead of long hearings and careful evidence checks, our sources point to a really disturbing trend of raw power substituting for true justice. There's a quote here that hits the nail on the head. When law sleeps, power wakes. It perfectly captures the erosion of due process. Because when the applause of a mob replaces the careful scales of the law, the systems designed to protect us begin to crumble.
Section 2. The cost of systemic bias.
Let's see how this builds into even larger global issues, because these skewed narratives and the bypassing of due process, they aren't just isolated local events. They are critical cogs in a much larger machine that enables and sustains global injustices and conflicts. Let's break down how this machinery actually works according to the sources. First, you have political protection, shielding actions through vetoes. Then you have economic interests, where arms sales make conflict highly profitable. Add to that selective media narratives that make certain suffering essentially invisible. Combine all of that with weak international enforcement of laws, and finally, public apathy. When the public feels distant or divided, the pressure on leaders just evaporates, and the status quo continues completely unchecked. And the cost of the systemic bias even extends to our planet. Our sources present this fascinating, slightly satirical but deeply serious concept called the heat tax. Think about it. Every missile launch doesn't just destroy a target. It literally heats the atmosphere and accelerates climate collapse. Billions and billions are spent on weapons while the Earth is quite literally burning. The sources suggest a really provocative idea here. What if, when a nation starts a war, they're automatically and heavily taxed to fund the Earth's cooling systems, like carbon capture and reforestation? It completely reframes war. It tapes it from just a human tragedy and frames it as an environmental crime that demands total accountability.
Section 3. The community economic network.
Okay, so pivoting sharply from those heavy, top-down systemic failures, let's talk about the solution. Because when these global and state systems fail marginalized communities, how do people reclaim their power? Well, they do it from the ground up. A community-based economic network isn't just a nice theory, it's a historically proven model. Look at today's world. Small businesses are struggling to survive, youth are facing unemployment, and wealth often leaves a community instead of circulating within it. Historically, many communities, including Muslim communities, have used models like cooperative trade or concepts like zakat and waqf to build real resilience. It's simply a system where people support each other's businesses, share resources, and invest locally. It creates jobs, builds financial independence, reduces inequality, and strengthens unity. And it's absolutely crucial to note, this is not about isolating from the world. It's about empowering a community so it can contribute even more strongly to the wider society.
Section 4. Steps to local prosperity.
So how do you actually do this? The beautiful thing is, you don't need to wait for a government grant or some big outside investor. Our sources lay out a very actionable, step-by-step roadmap for everyday people to build strong, ethical financial systems right in their own neighborhoods. Here is the blueprint. Step 1. Map community skills. Just figure out what people can offer. Who has the skills? Tailoring, tech, teaching, food, repair. Create a simple WhatsApp or Google Sheet directory. Step 2. Support local first. Make a conscious shift to buy from these community businesses, promote them on social media, and leave positive reviews. Just small shifts in spending habits can create a massive economic impact. Step 3. Build trust circles. Form small groups, maybe 5 to 10 people, to share advice and pool small savings. This creates the accountability and trust that is the foundation of any economic system. Step 4. Create micro-investment pools. Everyone contributes a small monthly amount, and you use those funds to support one small business at a time. You just rotate the support. Today it's for one person, tomorrow it's for another. And step 5, use ethical financial models. Focus on transparent, fair, profit-sharing, or interest-free systems where possible, because ethics is the absolute backbone of any long-term successful system. Now, modern tools can brilliantly supercharge these traditional trust models. To amplify your network, you have to leverage digital platforms. Use WhatsApp groups for quick coordination, use Instagram for marketing your local entrepreneurs, and use digital payments to make transactions seamless. In the digital age, visibility brings growth. But you know, technology is really only half the equation. You also have to invest in education, teach financial literacy, conduct workshops, and encourage youth entrepreneurship, because at the end of the day, a strong network is built on highly skilled, deeply connected individuals.
Section 5. Reclaiming the narrative. Building economic power is incredible, but to truly protect the community, that economic resilience absolutely must be tied to a broader political consciousness. You have to reclaim that narrative we talked about at the very beginning of this explainer. Economic independence gives you a voice, but political consciousness tells you exactly how to use it. The politically conscious citizen doesn't just passively consume headlines. They seek out verified news. They deeply understand their constitutional rights. They aren't afraid to question policies or have tough political discussions at the dinner table. And most importantly, they vote responsibly. As our sources remind us, democracy's greatest power is an informed, questioning public. Silence often just becomes an ally to injustice, so demanding accountability isn't just an option, it's an absolute necessity. We have covered a lot of ground today, from how fear is constructed to how you can practically build a micro-investment pool right in your own neighborhood. But it all comes back to this final, really provocative thought. Are you questioning the narrative, or are you just accepting it? Change doesn't start with governments. It starts with people. It starts with a curious, empowered individual. If even 10 people in your area come together with real intention, you can build something incredibly powerful. So